Champion podcast, where we explore basically the 5 most powerful themes from the book Dare to Live Well, the ultimate guide to building generational health. This is the place where real stories of transformation meet practical insights to help you and your family thrive in a world where healthcare is often broken and sometimes it can seem overwhelming. So today I am so excited, and you should be too, for the good man that is sitting across me right now. Today I'm honored to sit down with my dear friend, Karanja Smith, from my church community, City of God, where the pastor is the Bishop L. Lamont Turner. Awesome guy. What's up, Dr. Turner? All right. So Karanja, this is somebody who's someone whose journey has been nothing short of inspiring. So I'm just excited that I get to bring him before my audience so that he can share all of the life-changing things that has happened in his life and how that might be able to inspire somebody else that might be listening. From humble beginnings in Harford County, the Grace, Grace?
Grace.
Okay,
Yeah.
Grace.
Grace. That's right. You said it right.
Okay, Grace. Okay, so from humble beginnings, Harford County, he's risen to become a senior director of support services for a major regional hospital system where he manages probably a budget of upwards of, I think, what'd you tell me? Was it like 30 million, 35 million, something like that? So 35 million. So this is somebody you want to hear from, just from, he is beyond his executive role. He's also an amazing public speaker. He's a life coach, and he's even a passionate, I've heard this man do Bible study and Sunday school. He's even a passionate Bible teacher as well. So I feel like he is somebody that brings faith and wisdom into every sphere of his life. So in this conversation, I want to dive into his path of success, go over some of the healthcare challenges that's going on today that you and I was talking about, and really just talk about the problems that the healthcare system is facing. But most of all, how can we help somebody that's listening just do the right things now to protect their health, to find out what are some of the changes that's going on that's coming ahead of them, and what they can do to prepare. So without further ado, sir, let's jump in. Mr. Karanja Smith, welcome, sir.
How you doing?
Oh, man.
Saturday morning.
Morning. Listen,
you got me up early, I don't like getting up early on Saturdays.
That's what Daring to Live Well is, sir.
You dare me to get up. You dare me to get up.
We both could be home in our jammies, right? But we are here, right? We are here. So listen, man, first, I always like going back before we go forward. There's a whole lot of stuff we could talk about right now. But let's go back. I gave the audience your intro and all of that. But can you just share a bit about your journey from your early days, from growing up in Havre de Grace in Harford County, then you were in the church, and then you even talk about that too. But and then from now, we were just saying now you're a senior director of a regional, not just one little local hospital. This is a hospital chain that he's basically managing. So tell me about that journey, man.
So I'll start kind of backwards, like you said. Raised in a small rural area in Maryland, Darlington. Growing up in there, and my parents, Carlos Smith, Jolene Smith, shout out to them, gave me the best upbringing in the world, and really learned a lot of patience, accountability, responsibility, work ethic, with my parents, and that was really like the foundation of establishing me as a person. I think my mom provided me with passion, passion to go beyond what I felt like I could do. Yeah. And then my dad provided a structure so I could have that passion a little bit more directed. So I just wouldn't just be out here with just passion, but no structure, no pathway, and no direction. And so he kind of provided. So both of those mixed together is what kind of helped me to kind of be who I am. They're both very giving people, very loving people. So I try to be the same way. Yeah. My mom is really nice, and my dad's nice, but he don't play no games. So I'm a compilation of the both, right? Yeah. I'm nice, but I don't play no games. So I'm kind of like the same.
You know what? That brings me to a story. Just while I was on vacation. By the way, do not adjust your hue or your contract. Dr. Herold did take a nice vacation, so that is my Caribbean, my natural Caribbean.
Yeah. You see how dark he is?
Haitian sensation, mahogany coming out of my skin.
What's going on?
That's me. I was just on vacation. That's why I'm more relaxed.
He really lighter than me.
Yeah, exactly.
He really lighter than me. I don't know what happened. He lighter than me.
So
but not
while
today.
on vacation, shout out to my Jamaican massive, right? So while on vacation, my kids was asking me a question. They was like, hey, what parent? Because for them, it's like, they feel like, the world is black and white. They was like, which parent did you like more? My father or my mother?
Yeah.
And I told them, well, I was like, which one was better? Or they wanted me to choose one.
Yeah.
And I was just like, well, you know what? It took both of them to make me who I am, you know? On my father's side, that gave me like the drive to success. My father was a big, successful business person. He's always ambitious, always, like even right now, he's always doing new things. And that's, I don't even want to tell you how old he is, but he's always like working. He's always doing something. And so I got like my drive for success, just the business acumen and all of that stuff from him. My mother's side, I got like the compassion. If y'all think, Dr. Herold's, likes to laugh and is a likable guy. I got that from my mom. My mom's side of the family, shout out to the Conde family. That's a little bit more of like, the crazy and outgoing side. That family get together, we gonna laugh.
It's gonna laugh.
We gonna cut up. So I kind of get that from them, but it's like, we're always a combination of not just our parents, because some people, they only grew up with that one parent, right?
Mm-hmm.
So always a combination of the community that raises us. And I think what you were saying is that it was the community that your father and your mom kind of put around you, which is what brought you to the place that you were now. But of course, just like with me, I know that there were some challenges and there were some obstacles. And one of the things I talk about in the book in chapter 2 is like overcoming obstacles, because in life, you're always going to be faced with obstacles, right? So how you get over them, that's what determines your level of not just success, but how you reach your goals and even your health goals. So I talk about that. So that's what I wanted to say. And so highlight what were some of like the challenges that shaped you along the way, because so many times people can look at Dr. Herold or Karanja and he's in the big executive office and they're like, man, well, they didn't go through what I went through, right? But we did.
We did.
Right?
We did.
So what are some of the major challenges that you feel comfortable sharing?
So in healthcare, I started out in food nutrition. Worked there for like 4.5 years, then transitioned to hospital security. Then I did some work on the behavioral health unit as a psychiatric aide. And so those are kind of like the early beginnings of my healthcare career, where I was really, and I would say that the security job really helped me the most. And I'm gonna tell you why. In security, you have access. You have access to the entire facility. So, but you also have access to the people within those rooms.
Got it.
And so you're opening doors for people. You're helping people out with different requests, and you're also very vigilant. So you're throughout the entire hospital. You get to know a lot of people, but because your job is to observe, you're also, because my background is sociology, I'm also observing people's behavior and how their behavior relates to their environment.
That's good.
And so as I'm working in security, that's actually how I began to learn hospital politics.
Whoo!
And so
Politics and everything, huh?
Politics and everything. And so as I'm learning hospital politics and security, I'm like putting all these nuggets in my pocket.
That's good.
And I'm like 21, 22 years old, just really just kind of taking in the information. Now, keep in mind, I don't really have to use this information at the time, because I'm a frontline staff member working in security, so I don't really have to use a lot of the information that I'm learning. But little did I know I was going to have to, because my next job was going to be, I was going to be a manager for the environmental services team at this particular hospital. So it's a small hospital, Hartford Memorial Hospital. It's in Happy Place. And actually, they just closed down last year. So it was a great hospital, great stepping stone to kind of start at. And once I started that job, the challenge for me in starting that job was I was 23. Everybody that I was managing was younger than me. And I was
younger than you or older than you? Younger than you, okay.
I mean, sorry, older than me.
Yeah, that's what I figured. That's what I figured, yeah.
Everybody was
23 is young. I'm like,
Everybody was older than me, and I was really learning the business that I had to manage.
Wow.
So
Wow,
I'm learning it. I'm managing it,
Yeah.
and you're having successes and failures along the way as you're trying to learn, especially as a young, really kind of, I don't want to say kid, but young man, I say, being 23, and so you're working tirelessly, and you have your own family at home that you're taking care of, and at the same time, I was still in undergrad. I was at Morgan State University. Shout out to Morgan State.
Okay.
MSU. So we gotta give it a shout out. So
Bears.
Yeah, the Bears. The Morgan State. The. Let's put it out there. Let's say it right. The Morgan State University. All right. Now that we got that out the way. So I'm in undergrad trying to get through. So I'm having a lot of different things happening at the same time. And I'm glad I did it when I was young, because when I look back on it, I'm like, how did I get through?
Yeah.
A lot of it was really just like my faith and perseverance in God and belief in Him, really holding me up when I was running out of energy, running out of thoughts, running out of ideas, running out of money. So you're running out of all these different types of things. And so the challenge at that particular time was learning the business, managing and gaining the respect of my employees. They're all older than me. They're looking at you like, you're a 23-year-old kid.
Sure, there was some, like it wouldn't, it would almost be impossible for you to be that young, managing all these older people and somebody not there talking about, oh, this young guy don't know what he's doing. I don't know why they put him in charge. I don't know why they.
That's exactly
a lot of times, especially, and I'm glad you're saying this, because this is for those who are still trying to figure out their career. You have to understand that the obstacles are going to be part of the journey.
Yeah, they are.
But you can't let the naysayers, you can't let the haters, you don't know how many times, just even in my field, I remember I had a patient tell me to get my ID because I looked too young. Because I graduated as a chiropractor at like maybe 20. I first started practicing probably around like 28. So, I didn't have all of this, to make me. Now people think I'm older now because I have a beard. But
they don't think you're that old.
Yeah. But it's almost like sometimes you have to just, as you're learning, one, it's okay to make mistakes. You're not going to be perfect. And when you're doing, other people like to capitalize on that. Just know that God has the final say. Right? I mean, I don't want to throw in the preaching too early, but so many times people will get discouraged because they're starting off young and they feel like they don't fit. Whether it's because I'm younger, maybe it's because, I'm from this set. I grew up on this side of the track, and everybody else here went to private school and all of that stuff. It could be because I'm African American or I'm Caribbean American, and everybody else is of a different persuasion, and it's like I don't fit in, or I don't, I feel like if I make one decision, everybody's gonna look bad at me. But that's okay. You can have the grace to succeed, right? You can have the grace to succeed, and that's what I think like we both kind of seen in our careers. So that's amazing, man. That's amazing that you said that, because it's like I could only imagine being a 20-something-year-old, 21, 22, 23, being in charge of people already, and also having access as well. And sometimes with access, you've got to learn how to appropriately use that access, right? Because I knew some people where they had access, but they got in trouble because they, they took advantage of, right?
Like my faith in God held that to where I didn't abuse the access.
That's it.
And the fact that I had a family at the time, that helped me as well. And then being that young, I've set the foundation that, okay, in order for me to gain respect from my employees, especially being this young, one of the things I'm going to pride my leadership on is being respectful.
That's it.
Being respectful, listening, hearing them out, teaching, learning, allowing them to have some autonomy, allowing them to feel like they were valued within the organization. Because I think that a lot of times when you're put in that seat as, okay, you're the boss or you're the manager, you're the director.
That's good.
You want to operate in that vein, but you already have like the title, right? So now your job is really to give the value back to your staff.
Wow.
Because they're the ones that's running your operation for you.
Hey, that's leadership nuggets. If anybody else is paying attention, or if you're running an organization, say that part again. You even though you have the title. And this would go to anybody, whether you are working in a hospital, whether you're working in Fortune 500, whether you're working in the church, right? Just because you have the title doesn't give you carte blanche or doesn't give you access to just downtrodden people and to like point and like that's not the whole role of the title. The role of that title is to give the value back.
Give the value.
Woo!
Because when
you're giving value back as a leader.
When you give the
that's
value
amazing.
back,
please write that down.
Yeah, when you give the value back to that associate, you're going to get a return on that investment.
Woo!
So you're going to see the return because I've seen it in my own life when leaders have trusted me, when they've given me autonomy, when they presented value to me. I'm trying to do the very best that I can at this point. So I'm trying to return the value that they're giving to me. And so a lot of times you'll see like the value come back to you.
Wow.
You know, at my time at Children's National, we had a leadership team, and in 4 years through COVID, of 18 leaders, only lost one.
Woo!
In 4 years.
And that's unheard of, especially when you heard that people were dropping out of healthcare left and right.
Dropping out.
Especially in the hospital system. Because,
you know, and the one that I did lost, I lost it to they had an advancement opportunity. So, you know, and that's what you want too.
That's what you want.
You want to see your leaders, you want to see the people that, even if, and for me, like, you got to understand this, we live in a system of reciprocity.
Yeah.
And so if there's individuals that are trying to excel in their life, they're trying to build upon what they've been able to accomplish, your job is to help provide a pathway for them.
Yeah.
You know, if you're trying to keep them and hold on to them so they can stay with your business, especially if you don't have any advancement opportunities, then you're really blocking your own blessings.
You're blocking your own blessing,
and your own success.
Yeah. And that's so key. I mean, even in my organization, I've always been happy when somebody says, hey, I want to go to school or I want to do better in this and that. And I always knew that, you know, MSI was like a stepping stone for them to introduce them into healthcare. Because they could have said, hey, look, I've seen this and I don't like healthcare. And there is an ugly side of healthcare that we're going to talk about as well. But it's always good to see people excel within your organization, whether it's within or you've built them up into a point where now they can excel outside of it. And they can use all the things that they've learned under your leadership to excel. So that's amazing. Man. So many of our listeners, speaking of healthcare, they see like the front line of healthcare. And even with me, like when I knew that I wanted to be in healthcare, I was thinking more on the clinical side. I was thinking, okay, I'm either going to be this doctor or that therapist or this practitioner or whatever. So people see the doctors, the nurses, you know, they see, okay, I have an appointment and all of that. But from your leadership role, and this is why I really wanted the audience to see, what are some of the behind the scenes hospital operations that most people would be surprised to learn about? Even just talking about your role and all the things that what we were talking about the other day, like what it takes for a hospital to actually thrive, or even like a healthcare organization. Like so many people don't see the back end of it, right? So just kind of elaborate on that.
Yeah, thank you. So when you think about like your residential house, right, and you think about the basement, a lot of times, especially in the older model homes, when you go to the basement, furnace is down there, the HVAC unit is down there, the electrical panel box is down there. Your sub pump is down there. Really, and your foundation is down there. And so the fundamental and the foundational aspects of your house is in the basement.
It's in the basement.
But that basement is really running all of the quality of life above.
That's it.
So it's handling everything. You know, you got your electrical box, and then in some of the older model homes, you got your washer and dryer down there handling stuff. Now, thank God, it's on the same floor as the room.
That's new homes.
I appreciate that, but you know, back in the day, it's in the basement. You know, and so, and healthcare is essentially the same way. When you go to the ground floor, a lot of times, when you go to the basement, a lot of times, that's when you're going to find what we call our support services departments.
That's good.
And so these support services departments comprise of EVS and linen, which is your all of your linen and textile that goes on your bed, the things you need to wash up with, keeping you warm. You got your EVS team, which is cleaning your room, cleaning the facility, cleaning the public areas. You got your food and nutrition when you need your meals, and they have to regulate that diet according to, you know, what your health issue is.
That's true.
So if it's nothing by mouth, if it's a clear liquid diet, if it's a situation where you have fluid restrictions, they have to make sure that they're providing you not just a meal, but a meal that's according to what your care model calls for.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You have your biomed team. Your biomed team, they are in charge of fixing and PM and all of the different medical equipment throughout the hospital. And so you have your facilities and engineering team. You know, they're in charge of the entire, structural facility. Your HVAC unit, your electric, your carpentry, your plumbing, all of that stuff. You know, your animal handling units. And so there's, you have materials management. So there's so many different departments that are helping to really hold down the back of the house, as we would call it.
The back of the house.
Because and I love my clinicians. I come from a family of clinicians. And so they have a responsibility, and then our responsibility is to support them, support our patients from the structural and facility side, environmental side of these aspects. Security is one of the back of the house. But one of the things that I want to put out is that a lot of these departments outside of probably food service, they're not revenue generating departments.
That's what I wanted you to,
They're not revenue generating departments. And so, the collective effort of these departments are costing hospitals over the course of their annual budget 10, 50, sometimes up to over $100 million to run all of these departments.
Wow.
You know what I mean? And since they're not revenue generating departments,
that's why the healthcare at the hospital is going. That's why you're gonna see that bill.
That's why you're gonna see that bill.
The Q-tip that was used, or the Band-Aid, or every little thing. And so many times people will say, "Oh man, the hospital, they overcharging and all of that." But at least that does give us insight into why it's so more expensive at the hospital. That's a lot, man. And a lot of the things that you are over, they're not revenue generating. And I mean, speaking of which, I know that even if I was doing like some research before we were talking, because you really like opened my eyes to like that basement of the healthcare system and of the hospital system. A lot of them were facing serious challenges. Like I didn't even realize this. I thought it was because of COVID where hospitals started closing down. No, hospitals, there was already a trend.
There was already a trend
prior to COVID where hospitals were already closing down like at a much, much faster rate, especially the local hospitals. And then I think since COVID, it sped up a good bit of the closings, where I think it was like 20 something in a year, or it was just a much, much faster number. So, between the workforce shortages, the financial pressures, rising patient volumes, all of that. So right now, what do you see as the biggest trend shaping healthcare right now, and how will it impact the everyday families that are listening? So now they just heard you talk about, all the basement in the hospital and all this stuff. But what does that mean? What are the biggest trends and challenges facing healthcare? And then what does that mean? Like, how does that relate back to somebody that's watching and saying, okay, well, that's your job. I don't care about what happens in the hospital.
I think right now what we're seeing as a trend, and this has really been big post-COVID, is our supply chain market. It's exceeding our national inflation right now. So the increase in prices across the nation, and this is according to Becker Health, is a 5.3% increase across the country, and that's above our 2.9% inflation that we've been seeing. And so we've been really hit hard when it comes to ordering. And so let me just give you just a small example of how the burden of purchasing, just the purchasing aspect for a healthcare organization. And so if we just want to buy a trash can, right, just a regular trash can, it doesn't come up by itself, it doesn't go down by itself.
It's not the fancy one.
It's just a regular trash can that goes inside of a patient room. The supply market, the manufacturers, where we're going to get it, the distributor is going to charge us over $100 for one trash can. For one trash can, because you're a healthcare institution.
So that means
commercial.
You can't just do like we can't just go to Walmart or DG or whatever. Get ourselves a little trash can, put it in the corner.
You have one of those. Have approved vendors. So there's approved vendors that you have to order through.
That's it.
And so you just can't just run to Walmart and get the $25 trash can. It's the same trash can.
It's the same daggone trash can.
But because you have these approved vendors, the order through, those vendors, they're contracted to charge you a certain price.
Wow.
And that's throughout the entire market. That's not just one particular hospital.
Yeah.
Because I've worked at several organizations, and when you have to make these type of purchases, it's going to cost you. It's costing us as a healthcare institution. You have one thing called an EBITDA, right?
Yeah.
So your EBITDA is your earnings before interest, it's before taxes and depreciation and amortization. And so what hospitals would like to see, right? Best case scenario is that, for EBITDA, you want to see a 10% EBITDA.
Because it's still a for-profit organization.
It's still for-profit.
It's not a charity. It's not a.
Right. And that EBITDA, really, and that is to invest back into the organization.
We need a new MRI.
Yeah.
We need the best doctors.
It's capital dollars, right? And so, but right now, and I'll just give you from 2021 to 2022, according to Becca Health, is that we went from an EBITDA from 8.9,
which is average across
which is
the US.
about average, which is pretty decent.
Yeah.
But as we moved to 2022, the average EBITDA was 5.9.
Wow.
And so we went from 5.8. So it went from 8.9 to 5.8, which is almost 3%.
Yeah.
Which is millions, hundreds of millions of dollars when you're talking about healthcare
large
as a whole, right?
Yeah.
And so, as hospitals, and some hospitals today, depending on if you have a lot of patients, your volumes are from private insurance, or you're receiving it from public, which is governmental assistance, Medicare and Medicaid.
Yeah.
A lot of hospitals that are receiving more Medicare and Medicaid are seeing a smaller EBITDA. So they're seeing smaller revenue, and if their volumes are down as well, your reimbursements are not coming in as they should, because private insurance, you're getting those, and you're getting those back. And so depending on what location the healthcare facility in, whether it's inner city, rural area, or a suburban area, a lot of times that depends on that depicts your population of patients that you're going to receive.
Yeah.
And your population of patients is really the backbone of what's driving the revenue of your hospital. And so if you have a lot of private insurance, then a lot of times you're going to see a better EBITDA come through. You know what I mean? But if you have a lot of public, where it's Medicare and Medicaid, if you're inner city or sometimes in the rural areas of the country, you're seeing more of that, where you're seeing a smaller EBITDA come back.
And one thing we were talking about that, because I always like tying it to how all of these numbers and all this loss of revenue and all of this rising costs, what does it mean to you that are listening? Well, if you're in inner city or rural, a lot of times, most of those hospitals, outside of the ones that are taking like the private insurances, and you might see, a better hospital and all of that, but the ones in the inner city or in the rural, the majority, I think you were telling me, the majority of those hospitals, the majority of the patients are typically like the Medicare and Medicaid.
Yeah.
And for those that may not understand, those are typically like the lowest payers. In terms of if you're billing out for clinical services, you're going to get the lowest payment back from those two healthcare entities. So what that means is that those are the hospitals that are going to close first. And that is the trend that I was seeing. All those hospitals that close, it wasn't in the nicer neighborhoods, right? It's either inner city or rural, because it's the same, they're in the same problems. And it's funny because I've lived in both. I've lived in the inner city and I've lived in rural. Like I went to school at the West Virginia University. Shout out to the Mountaineers. Let's go Mountaineers. Had to throw that in there too, since we shouted out Morgan State. But, I went to, and I worked at a rural hospital, right?
Yeah, me too.
And that was the only hospital for within hundreds of miles.
Oh, wow.
So, but with all these local hospitals that are closing, it's happening more in the local and the rural. I'm sorry, in the inner city and the rural communities. And so many times, I think because I've lived in both, for some reason, and whether you want to call it politics or whatever, so many times it's like people in those communities, they're almost taught to look down at the other. It's almost like we always need an other to look down on. People in the inner city, they look down on people in the country. People in the rural, they look out, you're in the inner city or whatever. But meanwhile, y'all are fighting for the same. You fighting for the same resources.
Fighting for the same resources.
You're fighting for the same resources. Both hospitals are getting closed down as well. You both have the same majority Medicare, Medicaid facilities that are being run. So how do we help those who are listening? What does that mean for them? If that local hospital closed down, what impact should that have, or will that have, on their generational health? And how can they be more proactive with all these changes that are going to happen.
Yeah, and I think that that kind of it's kind of like brings me to a point of one of the other questions is really just understanding how do we need to pivot in healthcare? What do we need to see change?
Yeah.
And so I'll kind of incorporate both in this.